Hello, this is Harry Watt of North Carolina State University Wood Products Extension. This is a slideshow discussion of a labeling system for firewood as part of the National Firewood Workshop 2021 with our host Division of Forestry in Tennessee. We're going to have just a discussion here with myself and a slideshow, and I want to let everybody know I think this is one of the most important parts of this workshop because we have so much confusion and chaos between buyers and sellers of firewood. Oftentimes, the buyers are so confused about what they're buying, they have a disappointment. And anytime we have a disappointing customer, we're not promoting the industry. Also, we have so much difference between what one seller is saying to their customers to the next, that when one person goes to 5 firewood dealers or processing locations, they kind of get 5 different stories, and the general public are not really that good for the most part on firewood. So I'm going to share my screen, and I want to go to my slideshow here, and here we are. I'm Harry Watt, Wood Products Extension Specialist, North Carolina State University. This workshop is for June the 9th and 10th, and later it'll be on YouTube. Our funding source is the Wood Education Center Resource Center of Princeton, West Virginia, which is a unit of the U.S. Forest Service. Our cooperative host is the Tennessee Division of Forestry, but we also are assisted by the North Carolina Forest Service and the Virginia Division of Forestry. Oops. Just a note here on our discrimination notice, both North Carolina State University and the U.S. Forest Service, U.S. Department of Agriculture, do not discriminate on its clients and who we assist in any way, shape, or form. But if anybody has a complaint, it could be listed with the Department of Agriculture and also North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. What I like to say here about the goal of identification is we need a common system, and it doesn't have to be a formal system. It can be an informal system, but it would be one that clearly identifies when we're in front of the customer what we're selling, and if we're a buyer, we want to understand what we're buying. And I'm looking at 4 main factors or categories to look at as far as identifying firewood. And the first thing is species. Is it a single species? Is it a mix of species? And whether it's single or a mix, what species are in it? That's the first thing. The second thing we need to know, what's the moisture content? Is it considered green? Is it considered seasoned? Is it considered air dried? The next thing is, what is the length of the firewood? We've been having a trend of, on new stove purchases, to use shorter wood. So as a result, it's important for the buyer to understand what length wood fits their stove and that they're getting exactly what they need. The fourth thing we want to look at is, well, how big are the splits? And the simplest way to look at it is the end of the split, which is the largest dimension as far as the thickness. You know, if you have a wedge that's a star-shaped or like the 4, 6, 8, so forth, that's going to make a triangle split of some description. If you have a box wedge, it's more of a rectangle. So which is the biggest dimension in that pie shape or that rectangle shape? And the last thing we want to look at is the, well, that's the 4, I'm sorry. Species, moisture content, length, and the largest end dimension. If you look on the right bottom, you see a standard wedge, and you can see the end of it. So if I want to buy 3-inch wood, I don't want to be getting 6-inch wood. So when we are trying to hit a target, there is going to be some variation in that. It's not all going to be, but probably 90% needs to be within that range. The species, for example, we can abbreviate that. Something like RO, WO could be red oak and white oak. An HMX could be a hardwood mixed. An SMX could be a softwood mix. P could be for pine. SPF, spruce pine fir. H can be a hickory. probably you wouldn't list every little piece in there. If something doesn't make up at least 10%, you probably don't need to bother it. But for the most part, we need to be very clear when we're dealing with the public of whether they get it. And right now, whether you buy bundle wood or stick wood in bulk, delivered, or so forth, unless you ask the buyer, well, what's the species, you may not know unless it's labeled. Now, a lot of the bundle people do label, whether it's oak, hickory, whatever. But there are oftentimes a mix. Some of the most affordable wood that we get out of the forest is the mixed wood species. It may have maple, it may have box elder, it could have a lot of things, hackberry, the various locusts and so forth. So what we'd like to do is to have a system that we can identify what's going on. On moisture content conditions, there's really three we have to deal with. One is green, one is seasoned, and one is kill dry. Now, green would be the fresh tree and wood that has not been seasoned any significant amount of time. Now, if we claim season, we really ought to put a moisture content of it. And we would know moisture content if it's in the season category. If it's on the lower end and it's down to 30%, our moisture meters can give us an indication. But if it's not down to 30%, if it's 35, 40, 45, the moisture meter is no good. It doesn't read above 30. It's got too much water in the wood, and the electronic reading of moisture content's only good between 5 and 30%. But whatever it is, we should claim it. We should know what it is. If we're selling 30%, we should know that as being firewood dealers and sellers. Now, the kill dried, typically we want to get below 19%. That's a magic number, because below 19%, we tend to not have problems with stain and mold. Above 19%, we will have problems. But anytime dried wood gets wet, like say a gutter or blowing in under a shed or something, that wood can stain. It can still be 15% moisture content, but if that surface gets wet, it can mold and stain and cause a problem. So what we want to do with kill drying is we want to get it hot enough. And nationally, most of the standards, if you're going to sell wood anywhere, everywhere, all the time, you need to be running 160 degrees, getting that inside temperature up to the 160 for 75 minutes. It's pretty much the standard throughout the country. Some of the insects and some of the issues can go down to 140, but if you run 160, you will be pretty well cleared to sell anywhere. So the next thing we have to look at is the length of the wood. So if I have wood that is labeled 24, 20, 16, 12, 8, or 6, it can be any number, but whatever you claim it is, you should claim it, and your label should say that. So if I'm dumping a load of green split wood to somebody's house and I give them an invoice, I should have on that invoice how long the wood is. There are people that like to buy wood several years ahead of time. So if I'm selling 24-inch wood for outdoor stoves, that should be on the delivery ticket, and on down the way. So each length serves a different customer. For our people that are doing the restaurant wood, people that do barbecue or do pizza ovens or ambiance woods and fire pits, they want wood of a certain length. Now, as you go to bulk buyers doing outdoor stoves, traditionally we weren't very picky about how long the wood is. If we got a 12-inch piece, fine. If we got 18, fine. The stoves a lot of time would take 30 inches of wood, so it didn't matter. But our biggest trend in firewood today is people want smaller splits, and they want the wood drier. So if you're going to be in the firewood business in the future, you're running into a pickier customer base. And just throwing anything and everything in there is not going to be your ticket to success. Whatever you claim is wonderful. Just put it on the label, and that way we don't have disappointed customers. What about that end dimension? And here's just some, you can put whatever it is, but when we code out our firewood, we should be able to use this kind of a system. So if I have a small stove, which in my home, I bought a modern stove recently, And I don't really want any split that's bigger than 4 inches in my modern stove. And I don't want anything longer than 16 inches because it's too big. So if I'm buying for that stove, I don't want 7, 8-inch pieces, and I don't want 24-inch pieces. So when I'm buying wood, just tell me what I'm getting, and then I'll know whether it's what I want or not. So what we should say is we realize there's going to be some variation, and it's not going to be perfect 7 and below all the time if we claim it to 7, but it probably ought to be at least 90% of the load should be within that. And what has happened to us on processors is we've learned that we need to get the right size of log based on what kind of wedge we have in there. And if we match that up, then we can control how big these splits are. If we're throwing 20-inch pieces, then we throw a bunch of 10-inch pieces, we're going to be all over the board. You're going to have a lot of resplits. If you're running, say, a 6 and an 8 wedge splitter on a 20-inch log, you're going to be resplitting things. The modern customer is not going to want those big splits. So the label system could be really simple. And let's say that you do a 4-factor or 4 categories. So in the first example here, the HG245 could be a hickory green 24-inch log, 24 inches long with a 5-inch max split. Hey, we can figure this out. You can put a poster up on the out in your pickup area for delivery. You can tag the bundles. You can tag if you have a skid of wood, or going into a restaurant and you handle paperwork for delivery, you get a signature. You should have a labeling system so everybody knows what they're getting. So an ROWO S/30-16-4 means red oak, white oak, seasoned, 30% moisture content, 16 inches long, 4-inch max. Well, that might be a good stick of wood for an outdoor stove, okay? Or an outdoor fireplace. 30% moisture content might be okay. It's not good enough to go inside a house in a parlor stove, though, and so forth. So we're trying to match up what people need with what we can do for them. And we'll get more money for this. If people get what they want, they're going to pay us more money. The last example here is a PKT 1912-3, which is pine, kiln dried, 19% moisture content, 3-inch max dimension. So it really makes a system. And what's smart about this is we have a wide variety of customers that are buying our wood. We need to understand the more we get what they want, the more we can charge. Where we may do a bulk dump of just a bunch of oddball stuff for $200 a cord, full cord, for example. Maybe we can get 300, 400, 500 if we can separate it out and do smaller quantities, because that is the future of our firewood business. So using this system, it works for buyers and sellers. It should be in all the documents. If you're producing wood and tracking your inventory, you need to categorize it. So this is one way to do that. You can certainly have informational posters up for your employees so they understand the firewood business, the public, and everyone connected to the industry. And we should use this kind of a system to educate the public and everyone, the people in our company, the people outside our company, of what all this means. That way there's no confusion. If you tell an employee, go load so-and-so, well, they look at the paperwork, they see this, they understand what's out in the yard and what we want to do to satisfy the customer. And we will increase the price of firewood. As it gets drier, the value goes up. Shorter lengths are more valuable than longer lengths, and smaller splits are worth more than bigger splits. So all things concerned for us is we can make more money eliminating this confusion, eliminating the chaos, and better connecting the buyers to the sellers. This can actually, I believe, work in some form for the bundle firewood business. And there's been efforts with a distribution association to put in a system where there would be a silver, gold, and platinum level of quality for bundles. But this system could be cooperative with that. It would work well for somebody that's doing greenwood and bunglewood to use this kind of a system, and it wouldn't be any trouble at all in the label and include this. And it would be nice to have in the description what these things mean. So if you put in a G, it means green, kill dried, and so forth. So it doesn't have to be a formal system. It doesn't have to be a system that is handled by any state agency or an association. It could be just done, picked up individually and used to tag what we're selling and what we're buying. And the 4 conditions can exactly define what we're doing. So if there's any questions or comments, I would enjoy some feedback. This is my contact information. I'm Harry Watt, Wood Product Specialist, North Carolina State University. Email, phone number. I'm happy to talk about it. We will be next year in June. We plan to be in Wisconsin. It'll be an on-site workshop where we'll have equipment and do demos. But I do appreciate this opportunity to do some education, and I really would like to get this topic out there and people can discuss it and kick it around. I really would appreciate to hear your opinions. So anything I can do to help the firewood industry, I'm happy to do it. The U.S. Forest Service is looking to improve forest management and get these unneeded trees out of the forest. We want to improve the fire hazard safety for everyone, and we need to use our local wood instead of our fossil fuels that come from far and away. So I appreciate your time, and we'll continue with further videos here for the National Firewood Workshop 2021.